Hey, good morning and welcome to, what day is this? Thursday. It's the fourth day of our time together, Thursday. And on this day, we continue on in the wonderful book of Hebrews. And here we are in the second chapter. And we're going to get right into it. I can't say the word second chapter without connecting to the idea of something from my teenagerhood, my youth, and that was one of my favorite groups, Second Chapter of Acts. So anytime I say the second chapter, immediately my brain says of Acts. Not the scripture book, but a group of singers. Matthew Ward was a guy who could sing insanely high. He had, I think, two sisters and a brother-in-law. And they made up the second chapter of Acts. Well, here we are in the second chapter of Hebrews. Nobody came up with a Christian music band called the second chapter of Hebrews. That might be a suggestion. But nowadays, that's too long for a group. They tend to want to have one simple, nonsensical word that stands for their group. Anyway, I digress. Let's move into the book of Hebrews. Second chapter, verses 10 and 11, and it reads this way: in bringing many sons and daughters to glory. So here's the plan of God unfolding. Here's the plan. The plan was to bring many sons and daughters to glory. What makes someone a son or daughter of God when we relate to human beings? And this is one of the great fallacies that amongst many that exists in modern day thinking, and that is people will say, well, we're all the children of God. That's not what the Bible teaches. In short, we are sons and daughters of our father, the devil, because we are born in rebellion and we are the enemies of God. But wait, there's more. Let's not leave them like that. He has enacted a plan of salvation. And when one comes in faith and accepts Jesus, the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach, when one accepts Jesus, the Son of God, then one, whether they are male or female, then move into receivership of sonship and relationship with God. And they're adopted. Paul teaches that we then pray with a spirit of adoption, Abba, Father. So actually, technically, biblically, and actually, and really, people are not sons and daughters of God until they are born again. And then what's the plan? Wait, there's more. He wants to bring his sons and daughters to glory. That doesn't mean bring them up to heaven. That means to bring them into their rightful place with full revelation of what his original plan was for them. In bringing many sons and daughters to glory, it was fitting that God, for whom and through whom everything exists, should make the pioneer of their salvation perfect through what he suffered. And so think about that. Jesus was morally flawless and began, much like Adam and Eve before the fall, he was in a position of no sin, and yet needing to have revelation and adherence to the character and personality of God, response, ability to God. And so he had to go through and endure things in order to come into a full revelation of that. So he has a plan to make the pioneer, the one who pioneered this very idea of salvation. Think about that. salvation and the idea of it was not in the creation of God until the fall of humanity. And now comes a revelation of God's redeeming nature, God's salvation. So he should make the pioneer of their salvation perfect through what he suffered. And Jesus suffered throughout his life. And what did it do? It brought him into that place. The idea of perfection is completely and thoroughly mature, completely and wonderfully and perfectly equipped. And so that was, in Jesus' life and in our life, is a process. Process. No child likes the idea of process. They want everything now. But mature adults realize that things require going through a process and development in order to come into something. And so this idea of being made perfect, Jesus went through a process. So this will mess with you. Jesus was born a man, fully God, and yet was not perfect in the strictest sense of the word. Adam was created without fault, and yet he was not perfect because he was not mature and he did not have a full revelation of God. He had to then start at a point and receive a revelation of God through relationship with God. So you see the parallels there. And so he was made perfect through what he suffered. This is why he invites us, he invited his disciples, and he invites us to his cross. Except you take up your cross and die daily and follow me, you will have no part in me. You see the process? Jesus is saying, I'm in a process. You are called to the same process. And then when you move to the book of Philippians, you see four significant points. You can refer to a message from a couple weeks ago. But in short, the Apostle Paul makes the point that, first of all, the power of his resurrection makes me alive, that I might know him in the power of his resurrection. Then the very next thing he says is, and in the fellowship of his sufferings, so that I might know him and I might obtain myself to the resurrection. It almost seems backward until you realize the key is to enter in to the power of the cross, which is the submission of my life daily to the plan and directives of God, which brings me into a place of being complete, entire, and lacking nothing. Now, what we need to realize too, this is a very important point because we move into this in the very next part of this verse. Both the one who makes people holy and those who are made holy are of the same family. Isn't that interesting? This idea of being made holy is connected to being made perfect through what he suffered. And guess what? Jesus didn't take on our sufferings for our holiness. He took on his sufferings to reveal his holiness to us and to the Father as he lived upon the earth. So what does that mean? We are called to this. We are made holy by God through that process of perfection. Both the one who makes people holy. This means complete, entire, and lacking nothing. Our word whole, W-H-O-L-E, and holiness, very related. Sometimes we take the idea that holiness is some really strange, esoteric concept, but it's not. It's the idea of being fully who you're supposed to be. Jesus revealed himself fully as a man, who he was supposed to be. the exact representation of the Father in the earthly realm. And those who are made holy are of the same family. So Jesus is not ashamed to call them brothers and sisters. Wow. So we're of the same family. We've been made part of the family of God. We have been adopted in, and God has the same plan for you and me than he had for Jesus, except for the idea of dying for other people's sins. What is left? Suffering, bearing up, striving against sin, repenting, turning to God, and finding his wholeness, his holiness, becoming a more and more apparent and outstanding in our life. He is not ashamed to call you and me brother and sisters. Brothers and sisters. I had it brother and sisters rather than brothers and sister. No, brothers and sisters. He is not ashamed. He has identified completely with us. Isn't that a great thought? What a great revelation. So we can go through our day today looking at the idea that Jesus walked a road of suffering into the place of holiness as a man. We are not called away from that. We are called to that. And Jesus associates himself with us freely. And he's not ashamed to call me brother, not ashamed to call you brother or sister, whatever title of those two, and only those two are appropriate to you. And with that, I'll say I'll see you tomorrow. I'm already looking forward to it as we move on to the next couple verses on Friday. The Lord bless you.